Priyanka Halwasiya is a child psychologist at Sir Gangaram Hospital. She has over 16 years of experience and specializes in working with children and young adults with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Before I hand it over to Dr. Priyanka, I would like to inform you all that this session is for 30 minutes for 1 hour, where 30 minutes of presentation by Dr. Priyanka and 30 minutes of Q&A. After 10 minutes, the chat settings would be switched to host and panelist. Wishing you all a happy learning. Over to you, Dr. Priyanka. Dr. Priyanka.
Good afternoon and good evening to everyone. So my name is Priyanka. I will be speaking to you for the next some time. I'm not somebody who works very in a lecture way. And when I was asked to work with you all on this platform, I thought I'd be me. And me being me would ask you or tell you or start the session with a story. And here's a story. When I was a young child and I was in school, I was different. I was not different in the ways of being in ADHD or in ASD, but I was very different. And I was not accepted for my differences. So when I was different and my teachers and my parents saw the difference in me, they wanted me to change without really understanding what was going on inside me. And because the chat is on and everybody is responding, I might want to invite you all to take like next 30 seconds to think of a time in your lives when you were much younger. Was there a moment in your life when you thought you were not accepted for who and what you were? And if that was there, how did you feel? What was your experience when the world was constantly trying to change you for the better, for sure? But what was going on inside you when you were being pushed around to become better than what you were that time? So would it be possible for everyone? Okay. So would it be possible for everyone to kind of put some thoughts over there and respond? So I kind of saw the chat and I saw that you want me to be louder. Yeah. What would a child feel when he or she is not accepted being who he or she is? Yeah, stressed is one of the responses. But that's so nice to hear that your parents were supportive. Right. So see, well, most of the responses, if you see how you felt, what you went through was this. Now, this child that we are talking about, or these children that we are talking about, they feel the same in some sense. So before we move on to their experience, let's have a quick run into what is ADHD. And I'm supposed to share my screen. Please pardon my skills over here. So what is ADHD? ADHD is a condition in which children are more energetic. They find it difficult to sit in a place for too long. So you'll always find them moving. You will always find them fiddling with something. You will always find them, you will find them more energized than normal. That's going to be hyperactivity for them. The other element that we see in them is inattention, which means they'll find it very difficult to sustain their attention on one thing. So they'll be talking about one thing and now something else is on their mind, so they want to talk about the other thing. They are noticing what the teacher is teaching. They are attending there, but somebody says something on the side, another student does something or says something. The attention moves through the child and falls short of coming back to the teacher. So usually these children are kind of all over the place, physically as well as mentally. You will find that their homeworks are usually incomplete. They are slower in writing in the class. They are more distracted in the class. They could be more talkative. They could be more impulsive. So this is a package deal in short, in nutshell, about what ADHD is. But today we are not talking about complete ADHD. No, we're not doing that. We are today talking about only hyperactivity. You know how I see hyperactivity? I see hyperactivity as a gift. It's a gift of God. Would you ever call a child with high IQ as having a disorder or a problem? And if not, why would we need to call a child with extra energy into him or her as having a problem or a disorder? It is a problem because we cannot cope with it. The child's energies are so high that we find it difficult to match up to that. And that's why we want to change that about this child. We want this energies to come down. We want the child to change that about him. So this is a hyperactivity. Let's hear how it shows up. How does hyperactivity look like in a classroom or in a park? Or so I do hear that a couple of people are still telling me that my voice is not clear. And I did also see in the chat that some said that it is clear. Could Swati or Shivani give me a feedback by unmuting?
Now it's clear, ma'am. Yeah, we can hear you. The way you spoke now, it's very clear. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the feedback. So how does hyperactivity manifest itself in the classroom or in a park or in a home situation? Well, the child will be not able to sit. That's the first thing. For as long as I've been sitting right now, it will be very difficult. And the child will be fiddling, moving the legs. Like I said, playing with something on the table, looking at things, constantly into some movement. And when that falls short, he will trouble the child next to him. He will get up, move around, trouble somebody there, come around, or want to go to the washroom frequently, go for drinking water somewhere if that's an option, or maybe just stand up to visit the dustbin to throw something and come back. So it will be the child will be not able to sit in a place for very long and will look out for reasons to move, because that is the need inside the child. The child is having an innate desire to get into activity. The child's energy, which is coming from the child's brain, will make the child want to get into action and movement. And a lot of times we will find that a child who's hyperactive in nature will talk a lot, because that requires a lot of energy consumption. They often also have difficulties with their anger. They will fight a lot. They will be easily excitable. They can get into fights more easily. They will run a lot. They will be less inhibited, which means they will be less scared of getting hurt. So they can climb, run, do things without having this thing at the back of their mind that they might get hurt. And so that's largely hyperactivity as it shows so far. If you have any questions about how else a hyperactivity shows in the class, maybe we can take it up to the Q&A. I just saw somebody writing in the chat, in the adolescent, how does it show in an adolescent? Well, that's the nature of hyperactivity. For a younger child, it is more evident, more apparent. We can see more hyperactivity as the child's age grows on. When the person becomes an adolescent to young adult to adult, the hyperactivity reduces when compared to the younger age. But if you compare this child or this adolescent with the same age peer, you will find that this child is always more energized and hyperactive. Now, how do you see hyperactivity in adolescent? I a lot of times see that the fidgetiness remains. They are very fidgety even as adolescents, though less than what they were as children, but they are fidgety. They squirm a lot in their seats, which means they will keep moving their hands and they will keep moving in their seats. They get angry a lot. That's one way they show their hyperactivity, that they're very quick to anger and they're very quick to hit, use their hands. That requires a lot of energy. So if you notice the spectrum of ADHD, the child when younger will show less features of attention deficit and more features of hyperactivity. As the age goes on, the person becomes an adolescent, hyperactivity begins to slow down, it takes a back seat, and inattention symptoms show up more when the person is an adolescent. So that's about this. Now, what makes a child hyperactive? This is how you will see most of my slides, with a question or with like minimum content on it. So please don't mind that. So what makes a child hyperactive? Is a child being hyperactive to create trouble for us or for you? Is a child trying to be naughty? Is a child trying to be a troublemaker? What is the intention and what is the purpose of this child to indulge into over energy, overactivity? What makes the child do that? Have you ever thought about it? Have you ever thought about what makes this child indulge into this behavior? Where is this coming from for this child? I do notice that in the chat, people are writing seeking attention, but I am very sorry, that's not right. No, this child is not seeking attention. Hyperactivity for this child is coming from the brain. Certain chemicals, as they are produced in the brain of an ADHD child, are different from the rest. And that difference of production of chemicals makes this child more hyperactive. I like to give this example often. And if you people have worked with ADHD children, I'm sorry, I'm going to ignore the chat for a while because that distracts me. So please don't mind me not looking into them right now. If you've noticed or if you've worked with a child with ADHD, younger ones specifically, you will notice if you give them an instruction, they will stop. They will hold. They will follow. Maybe for 5 seconds, maybe for 8 seconds, maybe for 1 second. They will do it. But they have that threshold. After that 5 seconds, 8 seconds, 1 second, that self-control is not there then. That you and I have right now. It is then missing into them. And that when self-control gets compromised, they have lost the instruction and they're back to what they were doing before you gave the instruction. They tried. But the fact of the matter is they try to do it. They try and follow. What comes in their way? What comes in the way of an ADHD child to go through the instruction to the end is the chemical imbalance in their brain. They're not falling short of intention to follow your instruction. They want to follow your instruction. They want to listen to you. What is falling short for them is their brain's chemical. And that's something I don't believe in their hands. And they have certainly not gone and done that in their head to gain your attention. Look, if they wanted attention, they'd rather do something good for which they get praised for. Why would the child do something like this to get your attention? I don't think that's how we define an ADHD. That's not then a definition of ADHD. So moving on from here. This is where I want to place my complete conversation with you all today, and relating to the story from where I started. Why do we want to change this child? Why do we want to decrease hyperactivity? Why do we want to increase sitting? What are we trying to do over here? What is the actual end product? Now, I'm sure because you can see my slide, you know what I mean to ask and mean to say over here. But it's very important that we remain in touch with what do we really want. Do we really want this child to not be hyperactive anymore? Is that what we want? Or rather, our intention is to increase the productivity of this child, that despite hyperactivity, despite ADHD, how can this child maximize his or her potential? What do you think is the target? Now, I like to take feedbacks, very quick ones. What do you think would be, as an educator, as a teacher, as a parent, your target with this child? What would you rather like to do? Would you rather make this child not hyperactive, or would you rather just increase the productivity? What should you have as a goal in your mind? Yeah, I can begin to see some responses coming in. Yeah, because when you say that I want the child's hyperactivity to go down, I want to change that about the child. Are we really respecting who the child is? Are we really accepting who the child is? And if we are not, you remember that in the chat you wrote in the beginning how a child feels or how you felt as a child when you were not accepted. For you, maybe that was one odd experience. For this child, it is every minute experience, because hyperactivity stays with him or her all the time. What does this child go through all the time? What does this child go through when the child is not accepted in the classroom? I don't mean that people are calling out names, but people merely expecting him to be different from who he is good amount of non-acceptance. So what do we really want? What do we really want from this child? And that is something we need to keep in mind. When we approach the situation, when we use a technique, keeping this in mind, we always are successful. But if we do the same technique and same thing, keeping in mind that I need to reduce this hyperactivity or I need to change this child, the technique doesn't work. Trust me, it doesn't ever work. So having said enough on this, and I also have an eye on the time, let's talk about what can increase productivity. That's all that we need to talk about, right? How can I make this child more productive? How can I include this child more into the classroom? How can I make this child's needs taken care of inside the classroom? So the first thing that increases productivity is that the child must be interested in the task. If you notice, if you work with children with ADHD, you would see and you would notice and tell me that an ADHD can also sustain attention on tasks that he or she is extremely interested in. I have in my career seen a lot of ADHDs who could sit on drawing for a long time, who could sit on Legos for a long time. Let's not talk about the gadgets for now, but other activities that they're very interested in, they are very productive. So productivity is equal to interest. How much interest as educators can we evoke into this kid for this task, right? And I'm sure you also have seen and heard that the same child with ADHD is more cooperative, is sitting more, is attending more into certain teachers' classes. Whereas in certain teachers, he is more disruptive. So yet again, I will say, is it the ADHD playing into place? Or is it about something outside him that makes him follow instructions more? And that is something we need to tap, understand, and address. So interest into the task is equal to more productivity. Now, how can we increase the motivation of this child into doing a task? One of the best ways is to compliment, to reinforce, to reinforce, to reinforce. I come from a cultural background from where it is said, if you appreciate a child a lot, you are going to ruin his future by appreciating him a lot. But that's not true. We criticize the child a lot, and that demotivates him. If motivating him can make him more productive, then we need to reinforce, we need to praise, we need to compliment, and we need to do that immediately. We need to tell the child right now, look, this is what you're doing, and you're doing great. Appreciation is not about what you will do tomorrow or you need to keep doing it. Appreciation is about what you have already done. And what you have done is just amazing. That is the appreciation. It could be in the forms of asking the class to clap for him. It could be in the form of given a small token of appreciation. a small certificate, or any form in which you can encourage the child for the task that he has done. Yet another way to motivate is to make them feel that they can do it, that the task is within their reach. Now, when we know that this child will stay on the task for say 8 seconds or 10 seconds or 1 minute or 5 minutes, we need to design them tasks that only last that long. So maybe do not give them the whole page to work on at the same time. Give them only one question to work on, because that is achievable for them. They know I can do this. But if you give the whole page, they any which way know that this is out of my reach. I cannot stick around this much for as long. So what I'm saying is break the task into smaller chunks, making the child feel that he can do it. If the child begins to feel that he can do it, he will be more motivated and hence more productive. So with this, I move to the next slide. Now, this is something that is very, very crucial. This is very, very crucial. I was a while back talking to you about noticing that the child does listen, even if he listens for a very small moment or a very small time, but the child is listening to you. It needs to be noticed by you. It needs to be told by you to the child that, yes, I can see that you're putting in an effort. I appreciate the fact that you are putting in an effort. Accepting the child with his or her differences. Look, that's what I have played my premise on for all this time. I've been speaking for a while now, and this is all that I'm saying. Accept the child for who he or she is, without wanting the child to change. We change the environment. We make it more inclusive. We de-adapt to the child's differences than the child adapting as much. That is accepting the child. And last, and one of yet again the most important ones, is appreciating his effort. Notice the effort, appreciate the effort. Notice and appreciate. The more you will appreciate this child, trust me, and I've seen it in my life with my eyes. Once a child is appreciated for the efforts that he's putting in, oh my God, the results are amazing. Yeah. So this was about this. Now coming to more concrete things that I believe I was expected to say. So school strategies, what can the school do to accommodate and include these children? The best thing that I believe they can do is understanding that the brain is producing more energy. Now the brain is producing more energy. We are energized till here, and this child has energies up until here, right? Now, one of the best ways to utilize this energy, to make most of this energy, is by giving it an outlet. I don't know, because we all come from different cultural backgrounds. Do you know what a pressure cooker is? Would there be people who do not? So I have another screen on my this side, and I see all the chats there because I can't see them in front of me. So don't mind me looking away. Do you know what a pressure cooker is? Okay. Okay. A lot of people know what a pressure cooker is. Now, if the pressure cooker is hot, steaming hot, it has all the steam bubbling inside, and you don't let the steam off, what will happen to the pressure cooker? Okay, people, change the response. Now, if the pressure cooker has a lot of steam and energy inside bubbling, and you don't let the steam off, what will happen? It will explode, it will burst. Perfect. Now the ADHD is a pressure cooker with a lot of energy bubbling inside. There's a lot of energy bubbling inside. What do you think they need to do? Okay, next question. What do you think they need to do when there's so much energy bubbling inside? What do we need to do? There's so much energy here. I'm waiting for responses. See, here it comes. Let the steam out. Perfect. I'm so happy to hear this. Yes, let the steam out. How do you let the steam out, people? By giving him sports, by giving him action, by making him use it. Yes, by making the child play basketball, make him play football, making the child run, do warm-ups, let their energy, utilize it. And you never know, that becomes maybe a career for that child. That becomes the life for that child. So in the morning before school time, it is a good thing that the child gets into early morning sport. I'm going to be a little faster with my slides now because I have an eye on the time. Now, classroom strategies. It's so I am saying let the steam out, let the steam out. How can let the steam be out inside the classroom? It can be out if the child is allowed to stand and work instead of having to sit and work, because standing takes more energy than sitting. So if the child is standing and working, it's easier for the child to manage internal energy and external focus. Assign the child certain tasks in the classroom that require movement. Say, for example, ask the child to go to the teacher's room and get certain stuff. Ask the child to distribute certain things in the classroom. Ask the child to clear the board, wipe it off, or anything that requires movement. Assign that task to this child because this child will do it, and this child will enjoy doing it, A, and B, it will be easier on him to do it. And then allowing fidget toys inside the classroom that will help manage the hyperactivity in the class. I like doing that, and especially in younger classes, allow the child to move around in the class, move out of the class frequently. If they need, they can have a signal with the teacher. So say, for example, this is a signal or this is a signal. And when the teacher sees that the child is signaling that I need a physical break, the teacher allows the child to go out and maybe go up and down the staircase 2 times and come back to the class. But for that kind of relationship and rapport has to be present between the student and the teacher. So we know that the student is not going to run around anywhere in the school, and he will just do the assigned task and come back. Have the whole class engage in activities together. And this is something I've done personally, and I really like how it goes. That in between a class, when I see that my hyperactive kid is getting into high energy, I will ask the whole class to get up, move out of their desk, and stand and jump. And let's see who can jump till the end. Let's see, it's a competition. Who can jump till the last? And those who get tired can stop and sit. The ones who still have energy need to keep jumping or do some stretching and some physical energy, some physical break that the whole class gets together, being in their space. So that is something that really helps this child feel included, not excluded from the classroom. When we do things inside the classroom, when we do tasks inside the classroom, they have to be managed between high energy, high engaging tasks, low engaging, low energy tasks. So having to copy something from the board is a low engaging task. Having to move around and discuss something in a smaller group is a high engaging, high energy task. So having to manage between the kind of exposure, we can always keep in mind, and we can design our work around children like that we can balance two, so that the child is more motivated in the classroom. And the last over here is to multisensory work. Now, when we are doing multisensory, we have 5 senses: eyes, nose, taste, something, ears, and touch. When we use one sense, say for example, I use eyes, this part of my brain is utilized. When I use my ears, this part of my brain is utilized. When I use movement, this part of my brain is utilized. Now, if I use all 3, how much of my brain will be utilized or stimulated or engaged? Now, when I am using more than one sense, I'm making the child listen, see, and move together into a task. There is more brain that gets involved. The more the brain gets involved, the stronger the chances that the child will remain present with you. Now, I believe this is going to be one of my last slides. Now, what is the impact of regular sports on children? The impact of regular sports is that A, it redirects the energy into more productive ways. There is something known as executive functions, which is handled by the prefrontal cortex, which is right behind over here where I'm putting my hand, which are responsible for all your attention, concentration, planning, decision-making, time management, organization. All these things are a part of something known as executive functions. When we do more physical activity, and we do them every now and then with this child, they replenish the executive functions, which means this is more utilized. The child will concentrate more. The child will attend more. The child will be relatively better in planning, in decision making, in organizing tasks. When the child is doing more physical activity. Now, I know it is very difficult for you to see a direct correlation, but there is. On a later occasion, in a later time, maybe we can talk more about how these two are related. It helps in better management of the emotion. Now I'll explain that to you too. When the child is having relatively controlled sense of energy, his anger will be better controlled. He'll not be that impulsive. So when excited, when instigated, when made to do something that can lead him into a fight, because that hyperactivity is not present, because that energy is taken care of, the child will not act into a fight. He will not hit. He will not get into anger because the hyperactivity was managed because of the sports. So I ask this very often, and I share this with you all. I was having this conversation with a couple who was a doctor couple. They brought their kid to me for assessment of hyperactivity. And I was asking a lot of questions, including on anger and how do you manage the child's day and stuff. When the mother, stopped me and said, look, I think my husband has all these features of hyperactivity that you're saying. And I was like, okay. And that was a doctor couple, which means husband, wife, both were doctors. And they did not know up until then that the father has ADHD in him. So I asked him, how do you manage? How do you manage your life and ADHD together? So the wife tells me that he would get into 1 hour of physical activity in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. And he had his whole schedule around it. And I did ask, what happens on days when he is not able to do either of them, or whichever way? Oh, she began talking about how much of a difficulty it is on those days, because he will end up fighting with her on something or other. So when the hyperactivity is not contained, not managed, the child or the person can get into more anger and anger expressions. Having to do regular sports can contain that for the person. And that increases self-esteem. When the person realizes that I can control myself, this is what I said in the beginning, that this person finds it difficult to have self-control because of that chemical in the brain. Now, when this person realizes that I can control myself more after doing all the physical activity and I can do so many things better than earlier, that definitely increases the self-esteem of this person. And this is where I am with you. And let's discuss the ways in which you can increase the productivity of the child in your setup. Because I see and I understand that you all come from varied backgrounds and varied countries and cultures. Let's have you all write in the chat, how do you think you could manage the hyperactivity of the child to increase the productivity of the child inside the classroom? So the chats are open, and maybe in a couple of minutes, I can ask Shivani to pitch in and open the forum while everybody is responding. Sure, so please do write exact specific things. So I do hear that you're writing reinforce, but let's get specific. How will you reinforce? What will you do? Let's get extremely specific, very small, to grassroots behavior. When he finishes question number 1, I would like to go and appreciate him. And I would like to celebrate that with the rest of the class, saying that, see, this kid has been able to do it today. This is so amazing. Something like that. So get that specific, please, while I take some water.
Do I read them out for you, ma'am? Would that be helpful?
Yes, we can certainly do that. Could I stop sharing right now?
So you have the other few pointers, yeah. Sure, ma'am.
Okay. Oh, yes, I have one more slide to go. Yeah. Thank you so much.
So engage the child in activity they like, understanding the child's needs if they get distracted. Okay, providing more of physical activities, reinforcing them by giving a thumbs up, painting and dancing, simple role plays, making them the leader of the class so that they know and they get appreciated. Ask the child to do the task after the training has been done. Praise immediately, engage fruitfully. Let the child start off with the favorite activity before getting into the lesson. If the child wants to keep talking, maybe they could go in a separate corner. Verbal praise for small tasks. Give them breaks in between. Appreciate for achieving the task. Use trampoline for positive reinforcement. Brain gym activities. Physical activities. Give him positive reinforcement, incentives, play doh, and praise their work. Music, art, and play therapy. Engage the child in course. Give feedback immediately. Specific tasks to cater to his needs are to be given. Know the child's interest and engage him in that area constructively. First, observe the child and figure out why is he irritated. Such children love appreciation, fun brain breaks, relaxation therapy, brain break, paper craft,
Yeah.
teaching while physically playing, social stories about how to behave in the class, make the child help other children to complete the task, finger painting, more of sensory activities. Oh, okay, similar rhymes. Transfer their energy into a hopping ball, fingerprint activity. Give stars to the whole class if the class is clean and good in lessons. If the child wants to play, maybe you can relate it to the lesson. Focus on kids' mood swings and focus accordingly. Sliding, jumping, swimming in physical activity breaks. Make the child love you. Provide a conducive learning environment and give them positive feedbacks. Give them indirect activities through play, social stories, assign him as a leader, similar lines.
Okay, okay, great, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. I feel so nice to hear it all from you all. It appears as if I'm speaking to a group which is really knowledgeable and like really smart. This is so nice. Thank you so much for sharing these. You know, it really helps me understand that I think we are at the same page in having to support this child. Now let's talk about the key takeaways. And this is actually what I have wanted to speak about actually largely. And this is what I would want you to think about even when we close this session. What is a real target? What are we working on? Is it about hyperactivity or is it about productivity? I understand that hyperactivity comes in the way of productivity, but how can we utilize that hyperactivity to make way for productivity? How can that hyperactivity be the child's asset than the child's problem? That's one. Second, loving and respecting the child for who he or she is the beginning for maximizing the child's potential. If we can love and respect the child, and trust me and think for yourselves in your lives, if you've seen an ADHD child, if he is fond of a teacher, if he likes a teacher, he's doing anything to support and he's doing anything to be more productive in that classroom. Can we be those teachers for this child? Can we be those people in this child's life that this child wants to do anything for and he will then do anything for? So with this, I'd like to say thank you to you all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Priyanka, for such an engaging session with our audience and for sharing practical tips. Before we move on to the Q&A, let me take you all through a few things. I would like to inform you all that the access to the event takeaways, the slide deck, the overview document, and the resources are now being shared in the chat box. Do check out the links and share it with those who can benefit from it. I would like to reiterate that if you have loved this event and you want to spread the word about this event, do share the certificate program and the resources within your community so that we can help improve the lives of children with special needs. You could also become an abilities inclusion champion to bring about a positive change in the world. I would also like to tell you about the upcoming events. You could share these events with those who can benefit from it. Check out the links that are now going to be posted in the chat box. On the 31st of March, we have Enhancing Expressive Writing Skills in Children with Special Needs, the Advanced Level by Madam Geeta Gopi. On 7th April, by Dr. Sudipta Roy, we have Managing Challenging Behaviors of Children with ADHD in a Classroom Setting. These will be done at 4:30 p.m. India time, 6 p.m. Indonesia time, and 7 p.m. Singapore and Philippines time. Do share the care and forward the links to others who can benefit from it. Now we'll move on to the Q&A. Are you ready for the first question, Dr. Priyanka?
I'm scared, but let's bring it on.
Sure. So we have a question by Victoria Edu who wants to know that as teachers, how can we identify children who have sitting intolerance?
So how as teachers we can identify children who cannot sit for too long? Yeah. So when you look into a classroom, you would find that certain teachers or certain students, they would move more. They will not be able to listen to the teacher through. They will be distracted themselves, and they will be distracting people around them, children around them. They will be the one throwing things around, moving around. So basically, sitting intolerance literally is inability to sit for too long. So if you say ask them all to sit quietly and not move, say for example, for say 2 minutes or 3 minutes, the kids who will find it difficult to follow through that instruction are the kids that we are talking about. Does that help?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now we have a question on the similar lines by Naila Subilo. She says that she has come across many situations where teachers either directly or indirectly demotivate the child. Can you please give us an insight into how teachers should behave with children who have poor sitting tolerance? Also, as a parent, how can she be with children who are hyperactivity?
Oh, this is Shivani, my favorite kind of a question. Yeah. And I agree. I worked as a counselor in a school. I have seen that differentiation in teachers. There are some teachers who are just out and out present with the kid, and whereas there are some teachers who find it as so much more difficult to manage this child. I think training the teacher to manage the child and help the teacher understand the child. Now, if the intention of the teacher is to support the child, if the intention is right there, then educating the teacher about what the child is going through will be very helpful. And then training the teacher how to go through that. I think I understood and I did manage that part of the question. What is the second part of the question, Shivani? I'm sorry, I missed that bit.
She's a parent, and how, as a parent, can she manage a child with hyperactivity?
Love your child, yeah. Come on, love your child. That's just that. Love your child for who he is or she is. Tell the child it's okay to be hyperactive. It's all right. That's you. I know that is you. It's okay. I am like who I am, and everybody is different. You are different. So everybody comes with their differences into this world. You are who you are. And because you are different, you are somebody who is more energetic and energized. I think we need to utilize that. You've got a gift. Let's use it. And that's all that we need to do. We need to utilize the gift God has given your child by running, by jumping, by doing all physical things. Look, you might get tired by doing an activity after say an hour, but your child will not. And that's the gift that child has. And let's make the most of it. Communicate this to your child, no matter how old your child is. Communicate this to your child and see what you receive from the other end then.
Psychoeducating the teachers and for parents accepting your child for who he or she is the key to go. Now we have a few questions from Salvakian, Tong, Ruvini, and Iru. They are on the similar lines. It's a case-specific question where they say that the child is hyperactive and has been diagnosed with ADHD. The child cannot control his anger and emotions sometimes. Can you suggest strategies that can help him regulate his emotions better?
Age of the child, please.
Age of the child is not mentioned. Quite a few parents had it on the similar lines, where the child has anger outbursts and difficulty regulating emotions. So they were seeking strategies for it. So the age is not there with me.
There are two ways to respond to this question. One, that the anger that comes out of impulsivity. Okay, so 5, 6. So anger that comes out of impulsivity can be dealt with by increasing the physical activity of the child. So give the child a lot of support, encouragement, and love. And it usually doesn't have to be, let's say, only once in a day. If you see that the child is beginning to fidget again, get energized again, maybe we can do a quick round of some physical activity again. Utilizing on the physical activity as and when we see it. That's one. That's the hyperactive part of it. The second part of it is that comes from executive functions of prefrontal cortex. Now we were not talking about the executive functions today. That makes it difficult for me to respond to that question in a shorter answer, but I'll still give it a shot. When somebody comes and says something unpleasant to us, we all get angry. But in the same moment, very quickly think about the situation we are in. We think about the repercussions of responding back and so many more things. And those thoughts run in our head. As all these thoughts run in our head, we control and contain our anger. And we tell ourselves, not now, not like this. This is called emotional regulation. We can regulate our emotional arousal. We can take it up. And when we find that we are here, we have the capability and ability to bring it down. Now, children with ADHD do not have that because of difficulties with their executive functions. Somebody comes and says something to them. They find it difficult to buy time to think the repercussions of their action, and they kind of just go punch or get reactive. Now, that is another difficulty of emotional regulation. How can we do that? It's tough to answer in a short one. For that, I need several days of training to go ahead with, to be able to train you all with that. But because the child is, say, 5 or 6, I'd say that having to just go back to physical activity as of right now will be very helpful. If you need more support, maybe you can take my details from my email ID from the organizers, and they'll touch you base directly with me, and maybe we can do that one-on-one then. Shall that be fine, Shivani, for now? Because that's a training question that doesn't come in a single line.
I understand, ma'am. Ability team will take care of that. They could write to us at support@ability.com and we'll help them through.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing your insight on that. So now we have a question from Hemraj Subha, who wants to know that does medication help children with ADHD to improve their productivity? Yes.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So when the child is medicated, and that medicine goes and stabilizes the chemical imbalance in the brain, that's the starting point that we started with, that there is an existing chemical balance, and the medicines, when they go in, they stabilize that, that fluctuation in the brain. Once that is taken care of, the child is more attentive, and the child is sitting more, and the child is more present. When the child is more present to what is happening out here, it is the child is more present here and more productive. So yes, medicines do help.
Thank you, ma'am. On the same lines, we have a question from Iruk, who wants to understand, does meditation and mindfulness help improve productivity?
Amazingly, like amazingly, but only if you can take the child up until there. We need to be able to take this child to the point when the child can meditate and can do mindfulness. A lot of times children with ADHD, especially younger ones, will find it very difficult, even for a very short period of time, to be able to attend to what is happening inside them. But that's a very powerful way of dealing with it. Trust me, if you can, it will be just one of the best ways of dealing with it.
Taking it at the child's level will help. Now, from Lamar Tabungra, there's a question who wants to know what should be done if the parents do not accept the condition of their child.
So this is what I like to do. I never like to tell parents that your child is ADHD. I never like to tell parents that. I like to tell parents that look, your child is a naughty one, and I believe that he has much more potential than what we can see in this child inside the classroom right now. So I believe your child can do better. And if you see XYZ person, that person will teach you how to maximize your child's potential. And by doing that, the child will be more productive, achieve more grades, make better friends, have a more complete holistic life, and will be an all-arounder into a lot of sense. This is what I would rather tell a parent than say that your child has a problem. No, I'm sorry, the child doesn't have a problem. We need to learn how to cater to the differences of the child.
Accepting the differences of the child is very, very beneficial. Initially, it's advised or suggested don't tell or label the child. And then there's a case specific question, ma'am, now from Gayani Kulasurya, who states that she has a 6-year-old ADHD son who is not able to sit for more than 10 minutes and gets easily distracted. So that makes it difficult to complete the homework on time, and he's not interested in studies. Are there any tips for her that she can manage and support her son better?
Oh, perfect. Make your child only study for 9 minutes, not even 10. You know why? On the 10th minute, the child's threshold has already reached. We have utilized the maximum of it. So don't go up and even up until 10 minutes. Stop at 9 minutes. And when I say 9 minutes, I mean 9 minutes. So by the clock, put an alarm or something that rings in exact 9 minutes. After 9 minutes, both of you get up because it's a young child. You both get up, and for the next 5 minutes, you both indulge into a physical activity, preferably jumping, running up and down the staircase, or something that really makes the child heartbeat goes up. The child needs to go panting, which means has to breathe more. What will that do? That will make the blood circulation in the body go higher and faster. When that happens, the brain will get more blood and more oxygen. When the brain will get more blood and oxygen, the prefrontal cortex will get replenished, which means that this is now ready to work again. So start again for 9 minutes, and exact 9 minutes, stop activity for 5 minutes. So all I'm saying is break 1 hour into 9 plus 5, 9 plus 5, 9 plus 5. And slowly and gradually, you can make it to 11 and 5 minutes, then 12 and 5 minutes, and 15 and 5 minutes, and increase that span of sitting for the child. Does that help?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for giving your specific strategies to help this child. Since we are speaking about medication, a few participants have queries on those lines. We have it from Mohammed and Pooja Jai Singh, wanting to understand, does medication have side effects, and is medication required for long term or it's temporary?
Do they have side effects? Yes. Even if when we take a paracetamol, an anti-allergy, any medicine, like you name it, any medicine you take it will have a side effect. It will have effects other than the main effect that we are seeking. A lot of times I will ask the parents to evaluate what's more important to them, that side effect that they're getting into or the main benefit that they're getting into. The side effects can get covered, but the main impact that we're looking into is very essential for us. And if that's more important, let's indulge into the medicine. That's part one of your question. The second question is that long-term or short-term? The medicine has a life. I always say that. When the medicine goes inside, for as long as, say, for example, the medicine's life is 1 day. So the medicine is impacting only for 24 hours. After 24 hours, we need to take the next dose. And every day we need to take the dose. So for as long as the medicine is going on, that is the time we need to train the child to accept who he is and learn to accommodate his changes into his everyday life. So if it, say, for example, goes on for 3 months, those 3 months are the training period. If it goes on for 1 year, that 1 year is the training period. Depends upon how severe is the condition, how severe are the symptoms, and how much training we need to go, how much we can manage or the parents can manage without the medicines. So yeah, that was that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Keeping in mind the time, there's a last question for you where they want to know that can we suggest a gluten-free or casein-free diet for a child with ADHD, or does that help reduce hyperactive behavior, or will it have any side effects when diet is taken into control? It is by
Can I,
West.
can I give you a showdown? The last question. I don't specialize in diets. I know of a lot of people who do, and I've heard them talk, but me saying anything over here right now might be incorrect because I do not specialize into that. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So there's another question that's been popping out from a lot of participants saying that in this pandemic world, when things are shifting online, what are the strategies that teachers can use in this online mode to support children who are hyperactive?
Well, do a lot of physical activity, and I've been maintaining myself on that. Say for example, do a lot of push-ups. So our cameras on is obviously one of the main keys. Encourage the child is second, and make everybody do a lot of physical activity, engage, do activities, do fun things, talk more to everybody, and make them do activities that they can make them do physical things that they can do inside their own rooms. They stand up and jump, they can do in their rooms. The cameras need to be on. It's a competition, engage them. In a virtual world, it is even more difficult to engage people. It's a very, very big challenge, trust me, and I can feel the pain. But how will you engage them is the question. How will you keep them together? How will you have them want to unmute and respond to you? They need to be connected to you, they need to be there with you, and if that's there, everything else will follow. More importantly, if you think that they're getting hyperactive in their seats, please utilize that. Ask the whole group to get into physical activity at that moment, and I think that will help.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Engaging these children is extremely important to increase their productivity. Thank you for patiently answering all these questions from our dear participants. Participants, the feedback link will now be shared in the chat box. Do give us your valuable feedback, where 1 states scope of improvement and 5 is you enjoyed the session. Before we end, Priyanka, Dr. Priyanka, your words for our participants.
I think I enjoyed them. My motivator for a anything like this is having to have an engaging client, having an engaging audience, people who talk, people who respond. I know that you are there, and I know you are listening to me and responding to me, and we're running at the same page most of the times. So I was very surprised to begin with that I will not be able to see any participants. That was quite a showdown for me. But having to read your chats every now and then was very, very helpful. I just loved interacting with you all. Thank you all so much. It was great to have you all.
Thank you, Dr. Priyanka, and thank you, dear participants, for being active on the chat box for ma'am. So before I end, let me take you through the upcoming events where you could book your slots. Do check out the links in the chat box for these upcoming events and share it with anyone who can benefit from it. On the 31st of March, we have Enhancing Expressive Writing Skills in Children with Special Needs Advanced Level by Geeta Gopi ma'am. And on the 7th of April, we have Managing Challenging Behaviors of Children with ADHD in a Classroom Setting by Dr. Sudipta Roy. They'll be done at 4:30 p.m. India time, 6 p.m. Indonesia time, 7 p.m. Singapore and Philippines time. Do share the care and forward the links with others who can benefit from it. Thank you so much. Wishing you all a wonderful evening ahead. Until we meet again, it's a big bye from Team Ability.